Hi everyone. Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Emily, also known as Ethereal Chasing. I am back with another video today. Oh my gosh. I just went through a trek to get to this spot and I'm bleeding on my ankle a little bit. I don't even know how, but it's okay. Take my shoes off and get grounded and talk about today's topic, which is things I learned during my times in psychiatric facilities, inpatient facilities, essentially places that they take you when you're on a 5150. There are multiple times where I attempted to take my, so I was put in those places on numerous occasions, and I have lots of memories from them. Most of them are fond, believe it or not, and I want to talk about that a little bit. And also some things that I learned while I was there. I have my journal along with some things that I kept to remember those times, and also I have a book that I'm going to be sharing with you guys and some of my favorite things in that book. This is the book. It's called A Beginner's Guide to the Universe by Mike Dooley. Uncommon Ideas for Living an Unusually Happy Life. This book changed my life. I've had it for many years. That's why it's so beaten up and annotated and highlighted. It's actually on my bucket list to reread from beginning to end again this year. And there are lots of things within it that I feel are wise. It's literally called A Beginner's Guide to the Universe. It's very spiritual yet grounded, practical notes to carry with you throughout your experience. So I will be referencing that book. Before we begin, I'd like to pull a card from the Sacred Cycles deck by Jill Pyle and M. Dewey. This is one of my favorite decks. I've had it for quite a number of years now. Let's see what is here for us. This is my first time at this spot. It's really, really beautiful. I'm going to be looking around because I'm new here and I like to be in tune with my surroundings, so don't mind that. The card that came out for us was, oh my gosh, I don't really think I can show this all the way, but number 18, Menstruation. This is the card. What this means to me is the feminine will to release monthly if you have a regular cycle. Let's see what the little guidebook wants to say to us regarding menstruation. Okay. I surrender to my body's sacred wisdom. Regardless of whether you experience a menstrual cycle, there is much to be gained and learned from the fundamental beliefs you carry about this bodily experience. It is a time to bring awareness to your relationship to grief, relief, release, and surrender. A deeper exploration of these concepts holds much wisdom for you at this time. This new wisdom you gain will help you welcome the next cycle of growth in your life. And each card comes with a journal prompt, so I'll share that with you now. What are my thoughts and beliefs about menstruation? Where do these originate from? And do they serve me? So if you are a man, you can take that literally, or you can take it as, what are my thoughts about releasing grief? What are my thoughts about releasing things that no longer serve me? And how does that benefit me? It's a universal need to release so that we can grow, essentially comparing ourselves to a tree. Most trees seasonally shed their leaves. Some trees require pruning in order to facilitate new growth, and the same is for human beings, human vessels. There are things that are meant to be experienced yet let go of, and a lot of the time we find ourselves repeating these things that have happened to us, even just in thought forms, and we find that our experience is stagnant or repeating, and that is because we have not fully released the things that are hindering us from the next step. Shed the old leaves. There's no reason to hold on to dead flowers. Believe and trust that you will be provided with new growth. Okay, so that was nice. I wrote down some things for the topic of this video. I thought I put it in my journal, but maybe it's here. Yes, it's right here. Okay. So this is actually a card that my mom gave to me the last time I was in one of those hospitals. It's a picture that I'm sure you'll recognize, Winnie the Pooh holding an umbrella over Eeyore, a character that we have come to know as down in the dumps, if you will, someone who is always pessimistic, but had friends to remind him the joys of life and to provide for him when he needed. I'm seeing in my mind's eye the part of the movie, one of the Winnie the Pooh movies, I think it's the Heffalump one, I could be mistaken, but basically where Eeyore loses his tail and everybody is trying to replace it for him, and they have a contest to see who can find the best tail for Eeyore. They'll win a jar of honey. So Winnie is doing his best to win that. But at the end of the day, they wanted to help their friend. That's the main point. My mom got this for me, and on the inside it says, "You'll get through this. Love, Mommy." But yeah, you'll get through this. Whatever you're going through, know that there's always a silver lining. So this is my little list that I wrote. 5 lessons I learned in psych facilities. The number one thing is anything can happen in a split second. So take each second mindfully. I'm going to repeat that. Anything can happen in a split second. So take each second mindfully. That's self-explanatory, but it's really deeper than the surface level meaning you might be getting from that. Try to think about how people might lose their lives, for instance. Usually the tragic ways, it's very quick. And it's really important to remember that each choice you make carries a lifelong consequence. Consequence doesn't have to be a negative term, but in this case that I'm referencing, it was. Each time that I would hurt my vessel, I could have lost my life. There's no way to determine the strength of your body, especially when you're really upset or really angry. The pain body, as Eckhart Tolle calls it, can be powerful, especially when you are deeply feeling like I am. Something you may not know about me is I have been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, major depressive disorder, anxiety disorder, insomnia. These are all things, labels that were given to me to describe the way my mind works, the way that I carry emotion. And what it basically all equals is deeply sensitive or deeply feeling. So I never really identified with those exact terms. I just identified with the fact that I am sensitive. And with that comes a large responsibility to myself, because the times that I was overwhelmed with things going on in my life and I turned that onto my life, literally, they were examples of how quickly things can change in a split second. The very first time that I hurt myself with the intention of ending it all, I did the thing, and it was very evident to me that this was my last night on earth because of the things that I was seeing. I don't want to describe it in too much detail, but I feel like you can understand. The things that I was seeing on my body were telling me and screaming to me, like, this is it, this is the end. And I could have just laid down and let it happen, but an angel, an ancestor, a guide, God came over me, over my pain body, and essentially told me no. At this time, I was living all by myself in a state thousands of miles away from anybody that I considered family or friends, completely alone. And I didn't have a car at the time. I was taking public transportation where I needed to get. And it was very late at night when I did this to myself. I did it with the intention of leaving. So when I saw that it was imminent, I made the decision to call an Uber to take me to the emergency room. I wrapped myself in a towel to control what I could. Nobody knew what was going on except for me. When I got into the Uber, I just told him I hurt my arm. And I was losing consciousness pretty quickly. I was in and out of it on the 25 minute ride to the emergency room, but I remember feeling saved. And I walk into the emergency room and there's a towel over my arm, and I'm generally quite calm. Once they realize what's going on, as they're fixing me up and assessing me, that's when I was put on a restraint. I was not able to leave of my own will. This is the first time that I ever experienced it to this degree. I felt caged, yet saved at the very same time, and I didn't yet understand why. I remember after I was stitched up and everything, they wheeled me to a separate facility, and it was a room full of beds. They were generally spread out, and there was a nurse's desk, and this was very late at night, maybe the early hours of the morning at this point. And there was just one little light hanging over the nurse's desk, and it felt like a dream. Like, I don't believe I was fully aware to what was happening yet. I was just going with the motions of that force that took over me, that made me call the Uber in the first place. I was under that spell of like a morbid calm, almost. And They gave me, oh, there's a bug. They gave me a bed in that room, and I just got straight into fetal position and slept. It was intense. It was very intense waking up that morning and knowing that I was not going to be able to go home. The head nurse let me know that they are communicating with another hospital, another facility on where I will have to be staying longer. This is eventually going to turn out to be a week-long hold. But before they moved me, the nurse urged me to call a family member, to call my emergency contact, if you will. And at that time, it was my mother. My mother and I have our own lore, if you will, essentially making this one of the hardest phone calls of my entire life. The nurse asked me if I wanted to be left alone while I talked to my mom, and I distinctly remember saying no. She stayed with me the whole time. Even after I got off of the phone, I was bawling my eyes out because when I told my mother, actually, I didn't even tell my mother. The head nurse asked me if I wanted her to tell her instead where I was, and essentially what happened. And I was so terrified of what my mother would say that I just wanted to put that off on her, and she offered, so I took the offer, like, yes, please. So she told my mom, and then she said, your mom wants to talk to you. I was shaking. I grabbed the phone, and she said, are you serious, Emily? Those were her first words to me, after finding out what had happened and what I had done. And I realize now that she was really confused, maybe really scared, but she never did come out to visit me. So I was kind of left with this feeling like I'm not really cared for in that way by her. It's more of a superficial relationship, unfortunately, but it is what it is. My best friend at the time, Ariana, she came to visit me. She brought me necessities like deodorant and a toothbrush, and a change of clothes. I'm really grateful that I didn't have control over myself in that moment. I'm really grateful that I was saved from my split-second decision. I'm so grateful. The poem, or the note that I want to read to you in regards to this, is on page 61. So let's take a look. It only takes 1 second in time for everything to fantastically change for the better. And you're far more likely to have one such second by actively living as many as you can. What this says to me is presence is the most powerful tool we have to fully be in the present moment instead of relying on lingering emotion. I don't remember exactly who quotes this, but there's a saying that emotion is energy in motion. It is nothing to be grasped. It's to be observed. You can't grasp something that's moving at light speed, or else you're going to burn. And that's what thoughts are. That's what emotion is. It's energy flowing faster than you can even understand, and your attempt to hold on to it is cause of suffering. The next point, or the next lesson I learned, is being honest with yourself is more important than with others. I'm not saying to lie to people. However, there comes a point where you begin to change your life and you realize that the people around you have their own agendas, have their own visions of who you are supposed to be. You do not owe them yourself. You do not owe them explanations for why you do what you do or why you think the way you think. All that matters is that you're honest with yourself and you agree with how you feel about it, most importantly. Because people can hold a thought in their mind of how they're supposed to be, yet it can make them feel pretty bad because it's not resonating with them. If you ever find yourself in a position where people are asking you to give them your time or your energy in a way that you're uncomfortable with, be honest with yourself firstly, and recognize that you don't want to give them any of that. Also remember that this is an energetic world, so saying outright to that person, hey, I don't really mess with your energy, we're not on the same frequency, we're not aligned, I don't want to be around you. Understand that that could be a little harsh for people, and they won't understand where you're coming from. They're going to possibly see you as stuck up or like conceited, or just like separating yourself from them in a way that makes them uncomfortable or insecure, which is fine. I always get distracted by planes. It's fine for you to know internally that your frequency is not aligning with theirs, and it's okay for you to tell them an excuse, a white lie, if you will. That term is crazy to me. Something that isn't going to hurt anybody, but it is going to protect you. So like somebody that you're slowly moving away from energetically is asking you to hang out with them. It's okay to be like, I actually have plans, even though you're going to be at home doing nothing. Those are your plans. So really, it's not really lying, but it is. But it's not. At the end of the day, we're all reflections of each other. When you're honest with yourself and you move from that place of nonviolence and honesty, you realize that you are the most important you are the most important vessel, the most important person in your experience. You don't need to please anybody else but you. And people might think, oh, that's selfish, you're not thinking about anyone but you. Yeah. With that comes the right intention. I myself focus on myself so fully, yet I find myself giving to others freely because my frequency is matched with those that deserve it, quote unquote. That align with it is a better word. So you can say that selfishness is selflessness. That will resonate for somebody who's maybe worried about how people will see them if they decide to start living for themselves only. It's really interesting the way that people take that statement and run with it in all different directions. There's mothers and fathers that prioritize their vices over their children. That is not aligned action, not with the highest source. There is an innate vibration, there is an innate feeling that comes with acting out of goodwill, acting out of divine impulse. And with that comes love, comes freedom, comes security, stability. These are all universal resources available to you. You restrict yourself from receiving that when you're not honest with yourself. So prioritize yourself in terms of who you're answering to. Okay, the one I want to read for that is on page 14. Let us see. Our ability to stop kidding ourselves is what brings about the greatest breakthroughs, fastest comebacks, and happiest feet. I'll read that again. That's so amazing. It's making me envision Happy Feet. Such a beautiful movie. I definitely want to rewatch that now. Our ability to stop kidding ourselves is what brings about the greatest breakthroughs, fastest comebacks, and happiest feet. So stop kidding yourself with what you want and what you desire. The third lesson I learned is routine builds stability. Routine doesn't have to be what we were maybe taught that it is, such as a very rigorous schedule like 5 a.m. do this, 6 a.m. do this, 6:45 do this, 7:30 do this. No, not that kind of routine at all. What I'm referencing here is the routine of connection, divine connection. I'm going to put sunscreen on while I talk about this next part because I want to protect my arms. The routine that I'm referencing is of divine connection. What do you need to do to feel like your best self, like your healthiest self, like your happiest self? That is the routine that you begin building when that is your focus. And what I've found is the fastest way to build a routine that fits for you is to begin each waking period that you have, no matter what time that is. Everybody's schedule is different. Whatever time you wake up to the world, immediately sit in meditation. Immediately. Don't grab for your phone. Don't grab for a computer. Don't grab for a book. Don't grab for a journal. Sit in silence. Okay, maybe you can grab your phone, set a 20-minute timer, 15-minute timer. When I first began this many years ago, I only meditated for 10 minutes before leaving for the day. And that eventually grows and grows. The amount of time doesn't really matter. What matters is how can you release all thoughts, suspend all thought forms for that amount of time? How quickly can you forget about the things you need to do, about the people you need to see? How quickly can you just tap into that spaciousness of a quiet mind? When your timer goes off, you may find that you didn't really get to that quiet space yet, and that's okay. The routine is in doing that every single day and not beating yourself up for the thoughts you're having in it, or not beating yourself up for not getting to that quiet space as easily because you woke up from a nightmare or you woke up thinking about work already. Never beat yourself up for what you're thinking about. However, continue this routine so that you can build the elasticity to stay there longer. It's uncomfortable for a lot of people to not have any thoughts. It's uncomfortable for a lot of people to not latch on to everything that they're feeling, that they're thinking. Yeah. So begin with implementing a meditation routine as soon as you wake up. Another routine that I would implement is a self-care time. It doesn't have to be a whole day or a whole week. No. A self-care hour, if that's all you have. Self-care 30 minutes. It's a time to just do the things you want for your vessel. Maybe that's trimming your toenails. Maybe it's giving yourself a manicure. Maybe it's going for a walk. Maybe it's making a home-cooked meal that you really love. These are all things that we do to care for ourselves that don't require pleasing others. Our focus is here, is on ourself. And the more that you implement that, you'll find it easier out in the world, in the daily life, to accommodate to yourself first. And what a lot of people find is peace, is love, is joy when they do this. And that's what I want everybody to feel. I want everybody to feel good about themselves. But you can't get there if you're not being honest about what you need. The stability comes because your internal compass is, how do you say, what do you say when something is like finding its balance? It's equalizing, if you will. The stability is growing with the internal equalizing that you're doing. You're regulating yourself. We all have an inner compass. We all have an inner signal. We all have a receiving space, if you will. That receiving space is connected to our Creator, connected to the eternal consciousness that is all around us. That's your home base. When you were born, that's what you were connected to. You just forgot because of all the programming and conditioning. It's no big deal because it's all for your purpose. It's all for your highest good. That is real stability. It's not about how much wealth you have. It's not about if you have a home or not, if you own land or not. Stability doesn't mean physical factors. Stability is a state of being. Everything else just comes with it. It has to be so. So please implement a 10-minute, 15-minute, 20-minute meditation routine as soon as you wake up, and dedicating at least 30 minutes. I personally would say a day, but I know that's not feasible for everybody. But slowly get there. Slowly work on implementing 30 minutes to an hour each day of you. Focus on you, what you want to do. That's healthy. I felt like I needed to say that. Healthy self-care. Okay? I used to think that I just needed to be high to be okay, like off of marijuana, cannabis, weed. There were many years of my life where that was my self-care, was getting home after a long day and lighting up and relaxing. And in a way, at that time, it was. But searching for anything outside of you is a vice. not necessarily bad or good, but there is a certain level of health that needs to be factored in whenever you decide to do an activity. Think about the frequency in which you're doing it. Think about how it makes you feel when you do it and how you feel afterwards. Really take those all into consideration, because pleasure is fleeting. The high is fleeting unless it comes from here. This is an eternal high, if you will. All right, the fourth lesson that I learned is nothing and nobody. Nothing and nobody is worth more than you. I feel like you already know that. However, you don't always act like that because you care so much. You care so much, and you're deeply feeling. You're really tuned into what's going on around you. And it makes it so the worth that you place onto those other things or other people offsets the worth you place on yourself. There's a balance to it all. It's about finding the balance that comes from prioritizing how you feel. Nothing on this earth, no amount of money, no amount of money or no amount of success is worth more than your well-being and happiness. Somebody comes along and they are like, yeah, if you do this shady thing, I'll give you all the money you need to pay for what you need. Or if you do this sketchy thing that I know you don't really vibe with, there's something there for you. I promise you'll be rewarded. Realize that God is sacrifice. Also, you never need to sacrifice your faith for gain. Nothing and nobody is worth more than your faith in yourself and in the highest power. You don't have to do things you don't want to do just because they provide a paycheck or just because they provide an I love you, or just because they listen to you. I once had this friend who was like the only person I really had at the time to talk to. Yet, they were always asking me for things that I didn't want to give. Yet, they were the person that I thought I needed to because they listened to me. So I felt obligated to do those things that I did not want to do necessarily, because I was afraid of not having anybody to listen to me or hold me. I was sacrificing my faith in myself because I was afraid. That's just one example of misplacing your worth. I thought that I wasn't worthy of having somebody who just wanted to listen to me and be my friend without needing those certain favors. That is a thought form that I have healed. Yet I see it constantly. I see it all around me. people in relationships that are draining them because they're afraid of what life looks like without that. Faith over fear always. Trust that you have everything you need here. People can be vices too. Okay, the fifth and final lesson is prioritize healthy relationships. All right, page 174. Let's see what we have to say. For anyone ever to be in your life, you have something to gain besides their absence. Although you're acquiring the self-confidence to say, "I love you, goodbye," might be a reason. I'm going to read it again. For anyone ever to be in your life, you have something to gain besides their absence. Although you're acquiring the self-confidence to say, "I love you, goodbye," might be a reason. I'm grateful for all of the people that have ever been in my life. I can genuinely say I have love for every person that has ever helped me, or been there for me, or just experienced life with them in some way. I'll always have love for them. But it doesn't mean they need to stay in my life. It doesn't mean I owe them anything. It doesn't mean that there's more to be gained except for that very thing. I love you, goodbye. Yeah. Thank you for listening to me today. I hope that you find or found some joy, some light in these messages to carry out with you today, tomorrow, forever. Definitely get this book. I'm not sponsored or anything. I just have had this book for years, and it's something I always reference when I'm looking for divine guidance. Because we don't need teachers or gurus, or we don't need them. We need to equalize our internal sensors, our internal balance that aligns us with the true guiding force, the true master, the true teacher. We all have access to it. Please leave a like if you like this video. Leave a comment if you have something to say. I love replying to everybody. I'm so grateful to be here. I hope you are too. I love you. See you next time.